The Influencer's Edge is brought to you by the Subconscious Selling Domination System. If you're an already successful sales leader, salesperson, or sales team leader, and you're already at the top 10 to 20% of your market, but somehow you've hit a plateau, the old techniques are just barely moving the needle, and you're ready to bust through, dominate your market, and even crush your competition, go to sellwithsuggestion.com. Grab your instant trust quick start training and your subconscious sales conversion vault, which are all part of the subconscious selling domination system. Just go to sellwithsuggestion.com. That's sellwithsuggestion.com. All right, welcome back to the Influencer's Edge. As you know, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and all the ships at sea, this is a show that disconnects the dots, colors outside the lines, and thinks outside the box. We'll see if I can squeeze my guest today, Todd Krause, to see to what extent we could do that. Todd is joining us from Indianapolis. Todd, have you ever gone to watch the Motor Speedway?
I have not. I'm not a native to the area here. I'm a transplant. But first of all, I want to say thank you for having me on your show, Paul.
Oh,
But
yeah, you're very welcome. We'll see if after the interview you're so thankful. So, as I was telling Todd, I usually just have the bio as a pacifier, something that we can ping off of, and that I usually just go off my curiosity or challenging a term or a question. So let's dive into the boring, not that you're boring, but the bio is not what this show is about. So you're a business growth expert. What does that mean? What do you mean by business growth? Because one of the things you say is most businesses don't have a revenue problem. They have other problems. So what is a business growth expert and how did you learn to be that? What was your journey to get there?
my journey is through alternative investments. Big word for hedge funds, venture capital, private equity. I spent my life doing operational accounting and finance. I was tasked with creating and setting up companies, getting their operations running. When they were no longer needed, I liquidated their assets and shut them down. Along the way, I was spun out of a small asset manager into my own firm, a fund administrator, grew that to a $2 billion business.
Whoa, 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 pause. How much money?
2 billion.
From where? What was your starting point?
Zero. We literally built
What?
that airplane in the air.
Okay, that's an interesting process because many of my listeners are entrepreneurs and they have to build the airplane while it's in the air. So, as I think about it, as I look at you and as I spin the wheels in my head, is there not a lot of chaos and uncertainty when you're building that airplane as you're getting it in the air? And let's set aside the numbers and facts and figures and data of what you do. We'll get to that. How did you handle that chaos and uncertainty? Because there's a lot of entrepreneurs, and that's a daily part of entrepreneurial life.
It was. And to complicate matters, I had a wife and two very young children at home. So my partner and I basically looked at each other and said, we've got to make this thing fly. It was a daily process of solving problems. Every time we swatted down one problem, something else would pop up. Starting with clients just not believing that we were real because we didn't have a website. So how do we quick set up some sort of website so that clients think we're real? How do we figure out how to make all the money transfers back and forth between the different banks on behalf of the clients? What sort of authorizations and paperwork do we have? Client wants us to move money and they want it done in a couple of days. Finding people to hire who were willing to jump into a growing but chaotic environment where there's just a lot of ambiguity. You see it.
Yes, and if I may say, I told you I'd go pause.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
just
please.
dropped gold there. You just dropped gold. He said, finding and hiring the right people who are willing to jump in where there's a lot of chaos and a lot of ambiguity. This is something, whenever you do minimum viable product or you're doing a startup, we know there's going to be chaos and ambiguity, and you have to be willing to be flexible and fast on your feet. And you also have to find a great team. I believe it's called, oh, I can't, From Good to Great. And I don't know if you've ever read that book, but in that book, they talk about get the right people on the bus, get you the right team. How in the world did you go about doing that? How did you find the team?
In that setting, I looked for people who are in their second or third job. They were still young, they were still hungry, they were curious about the world. So I wasn't training a complete novice or somebody just out of school who needed a lot of training. They knew the basics of what I needed. But the most critical thing, when we talk about the right people, so many businesses focus on credentials and education and training. But what trumps that every time is having the right attitude. Somebody, you can train on skills, you can train on technical stuff,
Get it?
but if you don't have the right attitude, it is so difficult to add that person to your team.
Can you help us define? And I know I'm getting granular here, but you have a ton of experience. I know you can grow from zero to how many? $20 billion. We need to
No,
listen to you.
2 billion, that was 2 billion.
Okay,
After
two
that
billion.
was
We
another
still
bigger
well,
one.
but we still need to listen to you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So no, 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 no. So what do you mean? I'm getting more granular. Sometimes I zoom out 30,000 feet. Sometimes I get granular. So what do you consider what are the elements of a team member having the right attitude? What does that mean?
It's the person who wants to be there, the person who wants to do the work. They want to be part of the success of the organization. Anybody who comes walking through the door and they have an entitlement attitude, or the first
Mm,
thing out of their mouth is what's in it for me, and
mm.
what's my bonus and how much vacation do I get, those are red flags.
Yeah,
But when
yeah.
you're talking to somebody about what the organization does and who we serve and what the need is, and they start visibly starting to bounce up and down in their chair, you're tapping into this excitement, this energy that they have, and you're getting to a core of their personality that they want to be there. They want to be part of that. To them, it's exciting. It's a challenge. It's an opportunity.
And that, I think you would agree with me, is not something that can be trained in. It's either there or it is not, and you recognize it pretty quickly.
Absolutely.
Because one of the things you said, I read your bio, is most businesses don't have a revenue problem. They have a different kind of problem, which we'll get into in a second. And I think one of the solutions to anything you do is you got to have the right team. So let's get into this is sort of a contrarian message. A lot of people who are watching this and or listening, because we put it out in all formats, are going to say, wait a minute, what the hell is he talking about? I have a revenue problem. This business is not bringing in enough. So how would you respond to that? And what is the big problem that most businesses face?
Most businesses are chasing the wrong type of revenue. It's not profitable revenue, it just adds more work. But the real problem that they have is in their service quality and consistency and their customer service. We live that every single day. Between the sales pitch and the delivery is this gap. And oftentimes
Mm.
that gap is huge. We leave the sales pitch thinking, yes, that's it. I want that. This is going to be great. And by the time we get to the delivery, it's frequently disappointing, frustrating. When you take care of those details, then your employees and your customers become raving fans.
I think that's so true because nowadays delivering what you promise to deliver is just not done as often as it could be because businesses and entrepreneurs, whoever they are scrambling for the next convertible lead and the next convertible lead. I totally get it. And it leads to general, we are in a different kind of market. No matter what your industry is, we're in a market where people have been burned and they're overexposed and they're overstimulated and have too many options. So this is a really good gap. How did you get that insight? See, I like to get into how people think. When they have something extraordinary, I want to know, okay, what does that mean? But also, how did it get there? How did you get this insight?
Well, it really started when I was very young. Because my father ran a milk hauling business, and I watched him go above and beyond to make sure that his customers were taken care of, that their problems were solved, so that inspectors wouldn't shut them down for quality problems. If if he had to fix something on their property that would cause a problem with the inspector, he did it. And and then I layered on top of it just how do I want to be treated? That's a yardstick that you can hold up and you say, well, if I want to be treated this way, why shouldn't I treat everybody else around me as well? And if I want good service and a courteous service and people who come and they're respectful of my property when they come to service something and they're clean and neat, then I have a responsibility to deliver that same to them.
It's
It
beautiful
comes,
and simple. It's a simple golden rule. It
it
really is
is.
a very simple golden rule. But simplicity often gets overlooked because people look for complexity when some things are complex, but in reality, simplicity sometimes can be the answer.
And there's so many simple things. So how does that help them grow? Because you keep your people and you keep your customers. You're not always replacing your customers and clients. And growth becomes natural and organic. But we're very caught up in AI and technology. We're being sold this idea that it's going to do everything for us. And in the process, we're becoming disconnected from each other.
Yes,
We no longer have relationships with each other. We don't talk to each
yes,
other anymore.
yes, yes. Social media has become a curse rather than a blessing. I I completely get it. I get to, I like the simplicity of I'm sure it's simplicity without being simple. I'm sure there's a lot of moving parts to doing what you do. So how did you take a company? And let's get back into it. This is your company. You went from zero to $2 billion, correct? I got that
Yeah,
right, correct?
that's correct.
All right. So just psychologically and emotionally, when you looked at that $2 billion number and I'm sure you reflected back to how you started, what went through your mind and your body? Did you think, holy, we can curse on this show? Holy shit, what the hell? What was going through your mind? And did you ever think about how proud your father would be if he could look at you and think, my son lived my ethic? I get personal here. We can
There's
get
a couple
personal on
of
my show.
there's a couple of things there to unpack. And the one thing is I just felt this overwhelming need to make sure that each and every client was well cared for, and that all of my employees who were working long hours for me were well cared for. I found myself at the end of a long day running around the office going, please go home, please go home, get some rest. I need you back tomorrow. I can't have you coming back all dragged out and tired and saying, oh, Todd, I'm so tired. I can't do this anymore. I quit. And they would all go, no, 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 no. Well, just one more thing. I'm going to finish this. I'm going to go. Andrea, Kevin, you told me that a half hour ago. Go home. The work will be here on your desk tomorrow.
I love that. It reminds me, I'm not in the kind of business you are in, and I do have team members, and I treat my team members very well. In fact, I think this is something you probably have done. I don't know. When you have an organization, you have a team, you have to enroll them in your vision. That's true. And also, though, you have to create a legitimate channel where they can speak their truth to your power. And I don't know what brought that to me. It just seems to me that you create a an environment where people are probably very comfortable coming to you and saying, "Look, this is not working." Can you speak into that? Is that true, or am I really off base here?
No, you're not at all off base. They come over to my desk or into my office every day and tell me when I'm missing the point on something, or when I'm not focusing on something that I should be.
And how did you explicitly give them that permission, or is it just the culture you set up? Could they just pick it up in the air?
It's two things. It's the culture that I set up, and it's my personality. I'm not one to be real overbearing. I'm not one
No,
to constantly micromanage people.
no.
I want them to be all that they can be and grab as much of the work as they can and much of the opportunity inside the company. When they grow, the whole company grows.
Yeah. All boats are lifted by a rising tide.
Oh, yeah.
All boats are lifted by right. See, this turned out to be a show about leadership. Really, I think, as I think about it, and this is, you may not agree, but I always like to get inside what my guests are really doing. I think you're an excellent leader. And maybe really, as I think about it, what most businesses have that they're lacking is not a revenue problem. They're chasing the wrong kind of revenue. That's true. And they don't, the kind of revenue where they can't deliver or won't deliver. But the other thing that I'm just picking up on is you're a wonderful leader. And I think this is a problem for companies if they don't have wonderful leadership right at the top. Have you ever thought of yourself as a great leader, or are you just too humble to see it?
For a long time, I didn't think of myself as a leader. And even as I was winning awards, I would stand up on the stage and say, they're the ones who did it. They're the ones who did all the heavy lifting. And everybody around me kept saying, Todd, they only knew how to do that because you showed them how to do that.
Mm.
And then I went through this phase where I was thinking, really? Did I do that? No, they did that. And everyone kept saying, no, they only knew how to do it because you showed them. And then finally I'm getting to this point where I'm going, oh, I okay, I see your point.
It's really a combination of both. You see how I'm not even diving into the questions listed, but let's get to one or two more. Let's see. I'm sorry, I have to. Better leadership, clearer systems. Let's talk about clearer systems. We got the leadership. We talked about deliverability, building teams. Let's talk about systems because too many people, I used to do this. I used to fly by the seat of my pants until I learned to discipline my vision and my creativity with systems. So let's talk about that. The lack of systems. What are the right kind of systems?
Each company, each business and industry has its own tools. Those are the baseline foundation that's absolutely necessary. What really matters is what you put on top of that. And that is the communication channels. That is what the expectations are. The reporting and the feedback. Being clear on what are we going to do and how are we going to solve problems? What are our priorities? Systematizing that stuff. I've always done is that we want to know about problems immediately. The sooner we solve them, the smaller they are, the easier they are, and they don't spread to other areas. I want clear and honest feedback. And putting that into a structure that we meet and we talk regularly, and we are going to talk about a variety of topics, not only what's going on with the business, but what's going on with each of the people at the table, and how can we support each other.
Do you mean, if I could clarify, do you mean they're going through a divorce, or they're what does that mean? The problem, you mean just what's going on with them in the business, not their personal stuff?
Oh no, I look at them personally too, because you don't just hire part of the person. You get the whole package when you hire
I
somebody.
know that's
They
the
come with,
challenge and the beauty, and challenge and the bonus.
but when you see the whole person and you support them through difficult times and lend a shoulder when they need it, give them some extra time to take care of things. They bring their heart and soul and they perform at a level that you'll never get. If you say, park your personal life at the door, all I want is your professional side. You can collect your personal life on the way out when you're headed home.
This puts the lie to the old phrase, no good deed will go unpunished. What I see is treating people like humans, not just employees, and doing good deeds in the sense of having an open ear and a compassionate heart. Not only doesn't get punished, it gets rewarded. And that, I think, I don't know if we don't discuss religion or spirituality. I hate that term, but it seems to me you have a lot of depth of you, in you. A lot of people, and their first impression of you would be, this is a numbers guy. And I think you're the exact opposite of that. You have mastery of numbers, but I don't think that's the essence of who you are at all. And this is sort of what I love about this show, Todd, is I've been through a lot of therapy, sort of get to put people, not to do therapy with them or change them, but to really dig in. What's going on deeper beneath the surface level? Who are they as people? Not necessarily what they do, which is a side issue, a side thing. I want to know who they are as people. And I want my guests to, at the end of the show, when we have our green room chat, which we will, I want them to walk away thinking, this guy saw me. He really saw me. He was genuinely curious about what drives me, who I am as a person. And I felt seen and I felt heard. This is really cool. I'm enjoying this deeply, really deeply, because I don't have a systems mind. I'm a high creative. And so I have people to implement systems around me. We are actually at time, believe it or not. You've been a wonderful guest. We've deeply enjoyed you. More importantly, I know my audience is going to want to stay in the discussion with you. So, Todd, how do they go about doing that? How can the people who are listening and or watching and listening get in touch with you?
Go to www.silversunconsulting, all together, no punctuation. Sun is spelled S-U-N. It's silversunconsulting.com. Go to the About page. My email and this phone number is right there. I would love to talk to anybody who wants to dive deeper.
You're a cool dude. I don't drink at all. I don't alcohol, and I'll never figure. Well, I only drink when I'm with my doctor. My doctor somehow, when we go, never mind. It's not about me. Thank you for being on the show. Stay on for a green room chat, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give Todd Krause a virtual applause, and we'll catch you next time on the Influencer's Edge.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Paul.
all. The Influencer's Edge is brought to you by the Subconscious Selling Domination System. If you're an already successful sales leader, salesperson, or sales team leader, and you're already at the top 10 to 20% of your market, but somehow you've hit a plateau, the old techniques are just barely moving the needle, and you're ready to bust through, dominate your market, and even crush your competition, go to sellwithsuggestion.com. Grab your instant trust quick start training, and your subconscious sales conversion vault, which are all part of the subconscious selling domination system, just go to sellwithsuggestion.com. That's sellwithsuggestion.com.